and would like to have this for reference, all of you would be welcome to it as well, besides the ones that registered that couldn't actually make it. So what I'm going to do real quick here is I'm going to present to you guys. Let me know if you see this okay. Everybody seeing this?
Yep.
Good. So what we're going to do today, those of you that are here, you're here, and we invite you to this because you mentioned at least a medium, if not a high interest in RPA technologies on the roadmaps that you filled out for the Confer group. And what we wanted to do was spin up this session. RPA Now is a partner with the Confer group. And so we're going to have this session today with RPA Now and Cape Medical Supply. And the interesting thing is, this isn't going to be a presentation that sells technology to any of you. The intent here is to let you hear a discussion between RPA Now and a company that actually implemented some solutions and reaped some benefit. And I think it's important to know, how they did that, why they did that, what they gained, what the involvement was. And of course, like always, anything we do, please use the chat to ask a question, or feel free to throw out questions at any time, because your participation in this is important. So we're going to introduce the panel, make sure everybody understands what RPA is and an introduction of RPA Now, and then we're going to switch to the challenges and opportunities at Cape Medical Supply, and they're going to talk about their journey and their outcomes, and then we're going to go from there into a discussion with all of you. So hopefully you'll have questions. So our panel today, Sandeep is a partner at RPA Now. Some of you know him, some of you don't. He's going to be speaking from RPA Now's point of view. And Kevin Sheehan, thank you for joining us. He's the Director of Business Systems at Cape Medical Supply, and he's got an RPA project under his belt. So we're really happy that he'd take the time to talk to us today. I'm going to turn this over to Sandeep. We'll pull these slides down when you start your panel discussion here, but for now, I'll leave them up so you can talk about a couple things here. So let me know when to advance, Sandeep, and thanks for taking over.
Yeah, thank you, Jeff. First of all, good afternoon and good morning if you guys are on the West Coast, for joining us today. The intent of the call today, I got a chance to touch base with some of you with regards to the RPA projects, right? However, it's one thing I was telling Jeff yesterday. There's a good and there's a conflict side that we do today in our business. The good side is we would like to help and promote the RPA, but at the same time, we get benefited from the sale of it. So, it's always taken with a grain of salt on how it's done. And nothing beats that than hearing it straight from a partner of ours. All our customers, we call them partners. And nothing beats that than hearing from a partner who's probably been through the same journey and probably can address some of the concerns that you may have while you're thinking about RPA. So with that, today's goal, we want to keep this as a more conversational, engaging session where I'd like to interview Kevin Sheehan, who's the champion at Cape Medical Supply, who we had a chance to work with him last year. And as we're going through, you guys can feel free to jump in if you have any add-on questions while we're on the topic. Let's make this an interactive session where the goal is you take away what is important to you coming into this session more than what we want to tell you. With that, what I'll do is I'll quickly give an intro. If any of you have not been to an RPA intro, I'll quickly give an intro, and then we'll jump straight into the roundtable here. So with regards to RPA, right, the best way I give an example to everyone is, imagine you're getting a virtual employee who's going to be working 24 hours, 365 days, helping handle some of your repetitive high volume tasks. In essence, that is what RPA is. You're getting employees that are bots, aka bots, that'll be helping you automate some of these repetitive manual tasks, right? Jeff, if you can go to the next one. So essentially, what can a virtual employee do? Basically, it emulates a person, just like a person is using the keyboard and mouse doing the job. The bot does the same thing where it emulates a person. You can tell the bot to make decisions based on a certain set of rules that you would define based on your business process, and the bot would make those decisions for you, and kind of get the job done. It's almost like you're onboarding a new employee, where you train the new employee and tell the new employee, hey, this is how you do these tasks, and then the new employee does it, similar to that. The more important aspect here is, because it's almost emulating an employee, you don't really have to touch your infrastructure. It will log in, log out of different applications, move data from one application to another application, get things done without touching any of your IT infrastructure. So it's almost like a seamless transition between different systems, almost like a human is using those systems. Where we are seeing a lot of customers benefiting from RPA is, number one is customer experience. One of the things that's happened in the last 1 year is the remote work from home, as well as onboarding new talent and hiring new people. And also, if the new person joins, because the coffee break coaching sessions or the lunch coaching sessions one-on-one in the office have disappeared, so onboarding new talent has been a challenge, because the purpose of RPA is essentially to complement your workforce that you have today, not replace any one of them, right? You really want to ensure you take away the boring as well as the repetitive tasks from your current employees. Let the bot do that, so your employees can be used for more intelligent and growth scaling related activities for your organization. Essentially, by doing that, the goal here is, so you don't have to hire new employees to do these repetitive tasks, but then also improve the engagement and satisfaction of your current employees, right? So the customer experience is one area that a lot of organizations have taken a hit by not being in the office. And Kevin is going to talk to you about how we were able to take care of that part, as well as employee satisfaction and engagement. A lot of organizations are doing surveys right now because they feel not being in the workflows took away that whole teamwork environment, or the whole culture bonding that organizations used to have, where it got to a point where employees can switch a laptop and essentially they're working for another company now. So the whole bonding with an organization is gone. The engagement with an organization is slowly diluting. So that's where, how do you get them more excited about their jobs and show them a career path where they can be doing some strategic activities for the organization, right? And last but not the least, compliance and cost and risk. We all know when things are non-compliant, the cost is much higher. So how do you reduce that risk? And Kevin is going to talk about one of the things that they've done on how to comply with insurance, right? So with that, let me go to Kevin now, and we will jump into his journey, and we will get back to the slides again towards the end, because as I promised, this session is not a death by PowerPoint by no means. So, so Kevin, if you can hear me, uh, when was the first time you heard about RPA, Kevin?
Yes, the first time I heard about it was about 15 months ago. We went through a private equity-backed merger at Cape Medical Supply, and we're just a little background. We're a healthcare company located in the Northeast, and in April of 2020, we merged with two other companies and essentially became 3 times the size as we were overnight. And as an added layer, it was 2 weeks after the lockdowns began for coronavirus. So we were looking for solutions and new ways to get work done. And I was talking to my brother, who is the CEO of our organization, and yeah, he was like, let me look into a few things, and came back a couple weeks later with RPA and told me to basically start looking into it. And that was the first time I heard about it. I didn't know what it stood for, what it was capable of. So yeah, spring of 2020.
Yeah. So on the other side of the story, Peter, who most of you might know coming from mid-market, Peter introduced us to Gary Sheehan, who's the CEO of Cape Medical, and Kevin Sheehan, who's the Director of Business Systems at Cape Medical Supply. So Kevin, your first interaction with us, and we believe in being open and direct here, because I want this to be a very straight conversation. What was your first feedback or thoughts after you had a session with us? How much of it was convincing, and how much of it was you still thought was some science project?
Oh, well, it was very difficult for me to get my head around this. I'm not really a technology person. I've never done any kind of coding or anything. So, I mean, I have a greater understanding, I guess, than average of what technology is able to accomplish when we try to use that at our organization. But as far as like a tech background, I don't really have one. So it took me a little while to be convinced, but I will say I did watch a number of videos about RPA and what it was capable of doing. And I wish I could have found it for this session, but the one that really sort of got the wheels turning was there was a video about an HR director, which is not my area of expertise, but what they did was they scanned someone's driver's license, a new employee, and then typically what you'd have to do is go fill out the employee's name and date of birth on a number of different pieces of paperwork to sort of onboard them to the organization. And in the demonstration video, it just took the name off the person's driver's license, and then that triggered a process where it filled their name and date of birth in every single piece of paper that was required for them to sign and for them to get their retirement account set up and all the different things that you have to do when you onboard a new employee. It just went ahead and filled out their name in every blank space. And that was the one where I was really like, okay, this, could definitely get some things done for our organization.
Great. So Kevin, what was something, so obviously, technology is cool. There's a lot of cool technologies out there. But what was the real driver where you felt this is not something I can really get my head around, but I'm going to make that effort to understand it, because I'm sure you had some pain points that were driving you to find a solution. What were some of your pain points?
Well, the growth we were experiencing was definitely a pain point, and it being during the coronavirus made challenging times for hiring new people. So as we were growing, we were looking for opportunities to, I guess for lack of a better term, grow without adding additional headcount, because that can be challenging regardless. But when you were dealing in the early days of the pandemic, it was like, doing interviews and this is before everybody knew, was using Zoom every day. That was a big challenge. So also the processes I was involved with at the time were very repetitive. So that really got the wheels turning. It's like, this could really help us and probably prevent us from having to hire additional people to do the work. We could have RPA do the work, some of it at least.
So on the other side, guys, I'll tell you, we were having conversations with Gary Sheehan, the CEO, and he made a comment that with the whole COVID, I don't have a lot of people available. Just like Brad, we had a conversation about someone owning the project and running with it, right? So Gary said, Kevin is the champion. If Kevin is convinced and Kevin wants to do it, then we're moving forward with it. If not, we'll have to wait. So that's the other side of it, right? So Kevin, along the journey, I know we provided you more information. We had multiple conversations. When was the aha moment that you had where you said, all right, I'm good to go forward?
Well, I think after I was comfortable during our conversations, but it was still like, how is this going to work? We didn't really have a robust IT department. So I think a lot of this stuff was like just digging around online about what RPA was, how it had helped other organizations. I think there's a statistic that like 80% of Fortune 500 companies utilize RPA. So I thought if the biggest and best companies in America were using it, surely it can help us. But yeah, I think the fact that we could get work done without hiring additional people potentially, because we were growing quickly, and then we were really trying to do is mirror the processes we were using at Cape Medical at two other companies that were the same size as us. And of course, they said they don't have any employees available to be helping get that done. So if it was on the computer and it was repetitive, we could have it taken care of. So yeah, I think that's the part that sold me, is that we can get repetitive tasks done, quickly and effectively and accurately, without having to have a human perform them. And that was going to benefit me personally. So I can't really, it was going to personally benefit the amount of work that I was having to do. So that was also, of course, a great help.
Now, Kevin, you made a very good comment, right? This is a common concern that we hear from a lot of our customers too, is what is the effort that is required from the organization to implement an initiative like this? Because a lot of organizations may have multiple initiatives, and obviously they're thin on resources. So what was some of the confidence where you got the information where you said, this is something that I can manage, I don't have to invest a lot of my time, these guys can take care of it and go forward? When did you get that assurance that you have two choices, right? Doing this manual tasks by yourself, which is going to take X amount of time with you, and the Y amount of time, which is working with us to get those automated. At what point did you feel like, working with these guys is probably going to take me less time than dealing with these tasks?
Yes. Well, I guess that I liked that we had the flexibility as far as how big we wanted to go straight out of the gate. And we almost did something significantly larger than we ended up settling on. And I'm kind of glad that we didn't go that route, because it was just going to be me involved at the beginning. So I would recommend to start smaller and then expand off of that base. And you do need somebody that understands the business and the day-to-day and how everything operates and the stuff that's going to save people time. And then you need the IT folks involved to get it implemented. But after we got I guess like we had to get virtual machines set up. So we have one development machine and one production machine, which is essentially sitting in an Amazon warehouse somewhere performing tasks for us during the day. But it was just one. So that helped me. It was like, okay, I can take some of my work and offload it onto one bot. And RPA now was able to, get everything rolling. So I could document each step. And one thing, just to go back on Sandeep's introduction on what RPA is, it basically can do anything on a computer that you can do as long as you've documented it. So that's sort of why the level of decision making can't be so great that a human would need to be deciding things, but it can mirror everything I can do on a computer. As long as I document it accurately, RPA can do. So the fact that I just needed to document it completely and accurately, and then could pass that off to RPA now to actually implement, was great, because I don't have the knowledge or ability to implement something like that. So I guess the coding aspect of that was really helpful to know, okay, I can take a bunch of screenshots and document this out and then pass it off, and a couple weeks later we can be up and going.
So Kevin, on that note, right, it's always important, right? Any new technology, it's a very good comment that you made. I think it's called the pilot, where you pilot it out, and then we test it and we go forward. Because on our journey, we remember, folks, we wanted to first start with something ambitious, given the growth they have, but then we wanted to first prove out the concept, because when we were talking to Kevin a year ago, they were our first medical health customer. So we were understanding the medical industry, the compliances, the importance of the confidentiality of the information, the understanding around all of that. So we also were comfortable starting something small, but of course we have more medical client customers now. But then also the processes is an important role, right, Kevin? How did you go about deciding the processes, saying, hey, these are the processes that I want to start with? Uh, Maybe walk everyone through that decision making.
Yes. Well, I started with the easiest one because we had made the decision that we were going to move forward and use the technology. But at that point, I still wasn't completely convinced and trusting that a robot can actually do the work that humans were doing the day before. So I needed some time for basically the technology to prove itself to me, which it has eventually. But I thought, let's start with the easiest thing, and then we'll build off of that to more difficult processes. So the first thing we started with was we offer basically a web portal for our patients to register to place their orders through. And once they register their email address, we need to go back into our software system and change their preferred contact type from phone calls to email. And that's the process we started with. Is that that was the easiest, one of the easiest ones I could think of. And basically the bot goes in, pulls a report, identifies patients who have registered to order through the web portal, accesses their account, and changes their preferred contact method from telephone calls to email. And I would definitely recommend starting with the easiest. I think a few mistakes that I made early on was I got pretty excited about the technology and thought we should go real big right out the gates and start with things that were probably too complicated to go with to start. So I'm happy that we started a little bit smaller and let the technology prove itself to us, and also that we started with essentially the easiest processes, so the things that were not too complex but could also save time.
So Kevin, you remember how much time it took from the time it took for you to put together the process design, and then for the development that was done by us? Could you elaborate a bit on that?
Yes. I think I was told it would take about 2 weeks, and it would have, but we had some challenges on our end, and that's why I recommend getting the IT folks involved. Since we were 3 different companies, we had some people with IT folks in-house. One of the companies had their IT outsourced, and I had to get them involved to actually get the virtual machines up and running, and then get like an email account for the bot or a software account, because you don't really want the bot logging into the software system under Kevin Sheehan. You want it logging in under like the robot's name, so if something happens you can audit that history. So it would have been about 2 weeks from the time I first documented it until we were up and running, but we had some internal things on our end which were really one-time issues, because once you get the virtual machines and the accounts and everything up and running, you're kind of good to go at that point. But getting that stuff started was a challenge for us, just because it was involving the IT departments and the business.
I think most of them on this call would love it because they're all IT. So there you go. Having IT involved is very important for the success of this project. Although Kevin was managing the business system side of it, IT plays the critical role in getting the project started off really going forward. Kevin, from what I remember, you took about a week to actually get the process design done, and I think we took about a week for development. So we were up and running with the first process. Once we got the virtual machine, all the access to all the systems in place. Do you remember the 2-week journey? Like, what did you think of that?
Yeah, that was interesting. Like documenting the first steps and just how clear the directions have to be was something new. Like I said, it can do anything on a computer I can do, but you got to think of every click you make, every button you press. And this is stuff you don't think about when you're just going through your daily workflow. But so I think the first one I put together was not as clear as it needed to be. So I had to revisit that, and it's like, where the bot needs to click on the screen, the menu option, is it a drop-down menu? All of these things you don't think about when you're going through your normal day. You do need to think about when you're documenting the steps for RPA. So I'm better at that now, but I think the first one needed a few revisions, and it all worked out. But yeah, I was definitely getting some questions back from RPA now about very specific things that I just hadn't considered. One of the things is that when you log into our software system, there's a 1-second delay before the menu button populates, which I had never noticed before and had no reason to ever notice before. But when you were dealing with RPA, that 1 second meant something, that the menu button wasn't there and it was trying to search for it. So you had to add in a delay of a few seconds before the bot looked for that element on the screen. So little things like that just had never crossed my mind prior needed to be accounted for when we were designing the process. So
yeah, absolutely. It's almost like training a new employee that you bring in, right? But this employee, because it's going to be like your shadow of what you want it to do, you're basically walking through every step there. So Kevin, after the first process went live, this is I ask all our customers who go live, the first week after the first process is live is one of those feelings that I'd like to hear that from you, like where you kind of trust it, but you keep watching it, shadowing it like a new employee, if they know what they're doing or not.
Oh yeah, I was terrified. We had never done anything like this before, where we're actually making changes to healthcare patients' accounts using a robot. That the fact that it was only a year ago is sort of laughable now, but it was just I was horrified because I thought all matter of things could go wrong with this, and what if it's going to the wrong place on the screen and it's changing something super important to the patient's healthcare file or something. So I was checking every change that this thing was making, and it took me a while to build the trust, but ultimately if the directions are written out correctly, the bot works faster than a human and more accurately, and that's been really nice. But of course at the beginning, if you've never used something like this, I was checking every single change this thing was making, and it does record whether it was successful or not, so there was exceptions and things that I could look at, and sure enough it seems to work exactly the way the directions are written, but it takes a while to build that trust.
Sure.
And but ultimately, yeah, the accuracy is there, but it took me a while. I suspect it would take most people a while that go from not using this technology to using it to really trust that it's, doing what it's supposed to.
Yeah, Sandeep, I just wanted to interrupt real quick, and I know you're probably heading here, and I know I'm curious about this and everybody else is, but Brad from Magnaflux asked if you could carry the discussion around cost justification and results. Yes. I know we talked a little bit about that yesterday, so Brad asked if you guys could focus on that for a minute.
Sure, definitely. So Kevin, I know you picked a couple more processes after that, right? So based on your investment, I know we talked about it. What is the return of investment that you've seen, in the last 1 year?
Yeah, I think we are, all in at this point between, I want to say $30,000 to $40,000, and my sort of roadmap was to, within 12 months, utilize RPA to save us from having to hire 2 FTEs. After 4 months, we got to it performing the work of like 1/2 of an FTE. At 6 months, it got to 1, and then we've sort of had to stop the journey there because we were actually acquired again. And our software system will be changing, which brings up another point that if the processes you have designed are for a computer program that then changes the interface or something, that's something to consider, because the bot won't, the elements that it was selecting, say the menu key changes to another location on the screen, you need to account for that. In our case, we were acquired May 1st of this year, and we'll be moving out of our software system into a new company's in September. So I've slowed down in the RPA journey, if you will, because whatever I do between now and September, we'll be moving out of our database, and we won't be able to use it anymore unless the new company wants to use it in their database, because they use the same software system. And another point I'll make is I recommend starting with the easiest process, but also having, a solid 5 or 10 outline that you plan to do after that. That was a mistake I made, is not having enough documented out of the gates to start with. So
Kevin, based on what you guys have invested, I obviously for confidentiality reasons don't want to get into the numbers, but if you were to look at it primarily from a investment, return on investment, is 5x the number that you were able to achieve just in the limited period of time? And if we were to go all the way, probably would have been close to 8 to 10x?
Yeah, I'd say that's approximately correct. And I think after several months, I definitely was getting excited about the other departments that this would be able to help as well. Like, we decided to, okay, start with me, and this is something else I recommend too, is start with one person, do some easy things, get it to help them, and then I started giving some presentations to the rest of our organization about, this is what's done to help me in my job, and give demonstrations, and then they could sort of see where it would help them in their departments.
And then, Kevin, from a simple use case that you had before, now you almost went into an insurance validation and compliance use case, right?
Yeah.
Tell the team how that came about.
Yes, so we primarily deal with sleep apnea. So people that use CPAP machines, and they get their supplies shipped to them quarterly. And every insurance has different rules about how much you can offer the patient each quarter. So I think this was around the third process that we launched was the bot would go in, identify what the patient's primary insurance was, the number of supplies that they were allowed to receive per their insurance guidelines, and then make adjustments to their account as far as how the quantity of supplies that they would be offered, so that it was matched up with their insurance rules.
So,
and that was quite helpful, because that's the majority of the revenue for the business is driven by sleep supplies. So obviously having the correct number of supplies being offered based on what the person's insurance will cover is a pretty big deal for us.
So that use case, guys, for us was the next step up, because this is compliance and risk management, as well as ensuring that the customers are well taken care of. So it's got a customer service angle there too, right? So with that, maybe I'll quickly see if you guys have any questions on the initial starting part, because we have more use cases, and Kevin and I can deep dive into that. But as you can see, we started something small. We picked a simple use case. We proved it. Then we went to a complex use case that gives a better ROI. And so that's how the journey was. And I'd like to open up for the team if you guys have any questions. And I just have a few concluding slides, but would love to have hear your thoughts on it. How much of it is going to help you or applicable to you?
I guess I'll start discussion by posing the question, posing the conversation of how do you figure out the different areas, or what are some examples of different areas where you've seen the application work, because of the fact that I may say to my finance department, hey, you guys have repetitive tasks. I'd like you to consider something. They say, no. So obviously finding that use case was starting with one person and so forth. But what are some of the examples that you've seen to try to help spark the thought process?
So I can take that, right? So we have something called process heat maps, where based on different organizations, we know what are the areas that are probably strained due to scaling mechanism or due to challenging of onboarding new employees, right? So in the case of Kevin, if you notice, it was trying to bring in someone to do that simple data entry, if you will, right? But again, bringing someone, teaching them how to use the systems and all of that obviously was a challenge there. Similarly, if you take a HR scenario, we had a customer who was trying to hire a lot of shop floor workers. Now, this requires reviewing, posting a job posting, reviewing a bunch of resumes, and then checking for what you want to check into the resume, scheduling interviews. Once the interview is done, you want to get them onboarded, etc. So we had that customer fully onboard this entire process, right from posting a job description till the employee is onboarded, because they had to do in multiple 10x of employees hiring. So there are process heat maps, and that's where RPA now also comes handy, because we would be that partner doing that conversation with you, trying to kind of understand your business, walk through your system to see what are the areas in the heat map that may apply to you, and have those conversations with those stakeholders to identify and say, yeah, these are the top 5 processes that we want to start with. And I'll be happy to share after this call the process heat maps to kind of give you the thought process of what to look for.
And I'll add that when I was researching this before we started using it, the vast majority of examples were finance and billing related. And if I'm not mistaken, maybe Sandeep knows this, is that RPA started as a solution for finance department.
Yeah, you're spot on, Kevin. I think accounts payable, accounts receivable, invoicing, cash reconciliation, all of that's where RPA started. It started in finance, but now it's expanded to all the different functions. Absolutely.
And that was the first person that, after I gave my demos and stuff of what we had done at the company, the first person that approached me that said it could help her department was the woman who runs the billing department, and was like, oh, I have a few ideas about how this could help us, which we did get some things implemented for her, and they are helping. it was actually the person I thought was least likely to sort of get engaged with this. And yeah, it got the wheels turning, and we ended up implementing something that helped her out too.
So Kevin, what was one of those things you did for her? Can you share with us?
Yeah, one of the things was, so we started, I got a few things implemented, then showed, our people what we had done, asked them to start thinking about it themselves. And one thing I'll add is, like, if you give a presentation like this to the whole organization, a lot of people are suspicious of it, and a lot of people think that you are potentially looking to utilize the technology to, get rid of half the people that work for you or something. So really, we were using it to grow without adding too many additional people if we could. But after the second presentation, she approached me and had an idea, and what we ended up implementing for her is we have medical equipment that is on rent to patients. Their insurance company is covering a rental. And when their insurance changes, obviously that rental stops getting covered by that insurance and would then get covered by their new insurance. So what we implemented is the bot goes into our software system, runs a report, identifies the patients who have equipment on rent, whose insurance is now ineligible or came back as inactive, meaning their insurance termed or changed. And then it identifies which of those people have a valid email address on their account, or who just has a phone number and no email address. It then actually sends an email out to those patients that have an email on file and says, you need to contact us to update your insurance. Essentially, a little nicer way of saying it than that, but that's basically what it says. And then if they don't have an email on file, it opens up a task to the billing department to call the patient to notify them that we need their new insurance policy. And that helps throughout the year, but especially mid-year and end year, when a lot of people's insurance changes.
Great, thanks, Kevin.
I have a question for the group. Who is currently thinking about RPA, or maybe has implemented something and maybe wants to go forward? Is anybody at that point or thinking about it?
We've had introduction at another instance of what RPA was, and it intrigued a few people, but it's very limited in the number of people exposed to it. And so, as I said, it's the kind of the perspective of the area I think that could benefit most, from what my understanding is finance, and they say no. So trying to figure out, okay, where could you figure out to use it elsewhere and sell it to, justify it to the other departments.
I think
yeah.
So one way to look at it is, as you're growing, right? What are the areas where you need to end up hiring a lot of people and onboard and train them? And it's not easy to find the same skill set of people these days because the skill gap is there. And as experienced people are retiring, you obviously also want to capture that knowledge. So that's where there's the advantage with RPA is, when someone senior is retiring, you want to capture all of that and automate that, so that no one is going to ever replace that person that probably did it for 30 years, right? So that's kind of another way to look at it. Happy to connect and understand your business more, and maybe we can help you more. But
Steve, you started to say something?
Yeah, I was just going to say we've looked at it. I mean, my understanding is the areas to think about is where you're doing the most repetitive data entry type function.
Yeah.
Our challenge up till now has been that we typically have those things spread out pretty well, that we don't have a lot of people doing the exact same function in a group typically. So you get, and you always need somebody to deal with exceptions and kickouts, decision making, the fallout, things that fall out, even no matter how small a percentage. But we are growing, and our business is growing, not growing as fast as Kevin's did, but it is growing very, very quickly, and so we will reach a point in the next couple of years for sure where we'd benefit from this. Probably, really, if we dug hard enough, particularly like Julie said in the finance areas, and I don't finance and what we call office operations, accounts receivable, payable. Those will be the areas where we really probably could benefit, maybe even now, be close to it. The one thing, because a lot of people have trouble getting their minds around it, to me, a good way to think of it is, and again, because the term I'm going to use is common, I don't mean to be downgrading the technology at all, but to me, a good way to think of it is it's macros on steroids. That's what it is. It's macros on steroids. You've built a framework. You've added several other technologies into it, like OCR and things like that, to make it more powerful. Yeah. But the core thing you're doing is repeating keystrokes, which is what a lot of people are familiar with Office, Microsoft Office, and macros and other macros, and they've been keyboard automation software for a long time. But this is just taking it to another level, maybe 2 or 3 levels on out, by adding other technologies and identity management technologies,
AI, ML,
OCR, all that kind of things, to make it more powerful. But again, if you start with that initial concept, then you immediately are better able to understand what it can do, what it can't do. And obviously, most of us have a lot of data to enter somewhere. So it's something. I think the opportunities are there in most companies. It's just a matter of spotting the right ones, making the right case. And obviously, the more standardized, streamlined, and well understood your processes are, the easier and more successful, especially your initial projects.
Sure.
But I think, Steve, that's where, right? Sorry, Brad, go ahead.
No, Sandeep, I was going to say we're at 10 till, so I was going to pop your slides back up, let you wrap if you're ready, unless you want to say something else to Steve first.
Yeah, I'll just go through this and then we'll quickly wrap, and I'll email the slides as well. But Steve, the success that we had at Cape Medical Supply, in fact, any customer that we basically implement the project, touch wood, we have 100% success rate right now, but we give the credit to the champion. So Kevin is a champion at Cape Medical Supply. Kevin owned the initiative, because we are only as good as you can explain your business to us. We are only as good as you can document the business and give it to us. We can obviously help you what to look for, what to think for, but then having a champion dedicated is the key.
And that is why I mentioned the importance of standardization and understanding of your process.
For sure.
Having your processes repeatable. And I say that, but a lot of people either don't, or they just think they do, and then they realize it's not as much so as they think. But the more you can have that done, obviously, the more successful your RPA project will be.
Right. Absolutely. So quickly, right, just to quickly wrap up here, we have 2 types of bots, right? So as Kevin said, you kind of have a bot that you want to fully trust, where you let it do what it's doing. That's called the fully unattended bot, where you define all the rules and it goes about doing the job. Or if it's a new employee that you just hired, like a green hat, then you probably want to have an attended bot where it does the job, comes back to you with an output, and then you decide what you want to do with an output. So it's almost like a supervised bot that it's going, right? And you can obviously mix and match these 2 scenarios to get there. when it comes to UiPath, right, Steve, the really good thing here, like you said, is it's a low-code, no-code platform. So it's basically you're designing a flow chart with the help of drag and drop icons, where the way we work with all our customers is we are here to help you hold your hand and get started on this journey, but we're not designed in the way that you're fully dependent on us. We actually want to get you up to speed so you can control your destiny. Of course, we're there if you need us to help you, but the goal of ours is to be that partner that helps you get started on this journey, and then we're there as needed, right? So that is a unique thing with UiPath, the academy that they have, where you can get the training for all these all your people, be it a business analyst, be it a developer at no cost. All of that are available resources, so you can control your destiny there. Jeff, if you can go to the next one.
Sure.
So as I summarized, right, so these were some of the challenges and opportunities. One of the interesting thing that Kevin ended up doing is an automated marketing, where Kevin was able to just get the list of customers and do an automated marketing using that as well. So very interesting, automated marketing, automated customer service, and insurance compliance. As you can see, he was able to address 3 areas, which is mass volume for the organization to get to that 5x returns. Jeff, if you can go to the next one. So a quick intro. I know I met most of you guys, Brad and Julie. I don't think we met, but we are here to help you guys. We also have AI, ML, and cloud solutions, along with some 3D manufacturing. So our sister companies have that. So we're here to help you guide it. I'm the business guy. So first, I want to understand your business, understand where you're coming from, and then we bring the technology. Because without understanding business, the technology application will not go in the right direction. And because we have footprint across the globe, on the other side of the globe as well, we're able to offer a dual shift workforce. At the same time, a support that will respond to you within 24 hours, no matter what. And some of the, like I said, consulting, implementation, infrastructure validation, we're a partner with UiPath, so we'll help take care of everything, dealing with UiPath, getting your licenses activated, ensuring that you're getting the best deal. We know when you get a better deal with UiPath. We know their fiscal year. We know when they're offering good deals. So we're here to help you get that and navigate through that as well. Jeff, next one. So these are some of the common use cases, Julie, Steve, we discussed, right? I'll go ahead and send this deck out so you can see this. But also something we're always happy to do is have a conversation. We're happy to get on a call, 30 minutes, 1 hour conversation, just brainstorm. At the end of 1 hour, maybe we don't find anything, but at least, we've done it and we know where we stand, right? So we're always happy to do that.
Right.
Jeff, the next one. So this is a typical journey of a customer, right? So most of you are probably in different stages. You try to first discover, right? You're trying to understand what are the opportunities. Then you go build, start something small. So I always say, let's start with one bot. And one bot is something that it's not that expensive that you have to struggle hard to justify. You start with one bot, let's see what it can do. Let the bot evangelize for itself. When people start noticing what this bot is doing, like Kevin said, a person that he's thought least of showed up and said, I want to know what I can do with it, right? So that's another good way to start it. Instead of trying to get a buy-in from everyone to do 10 bots, let's start with one bot or 2 bots max and then see how it goes from there. That's what we advise a lot of our customers. Not to start big, let's start small and go from there. And then you're managing it, you're running it, and then as you're engaging, you're measuring the results, and then you're fine-tuning and going forward. So this is a typical journey. And like I said, our goal is, and Steve, us. We met 2 years ago. We don't spam your inbox. We don't send a lot of emails. We don't call you guys. Ours is a customer word of mouth style of business. Give us an opportunity. We'll deliver you the results, and then we'll learn more business from you from there. That's how we work. That's the model we work on. So again, any questions? Happy to answer. Kevin is here for as well. If you have any questions for him. He's about to get busy with this new organization that they got acquired now. So they acquired 3 organizations. Now they got acquired by someone else. So he's about to get busy with this new role there as well. And I'm sure he's already thinking of positioning RPA in that larger organization now.
I'm sure. All right, this has been excellent. Sandeep and Kevin, thank you, for sharing. It's great to have an actual use case and having someone here to just talk about what you went through. And we appreciate your honesty and your openness and sharing your company with us, Kevin. That's very, we're all grateful to get to hear that. All of you, thank you. If I can help direct any of you in any way to get answers, if any of you would like to have a copy of this recording, we can get it sent your way, and also with Sandeep's slides. So we will follow up however you guys know how to get a hold of me, and we'll make sure and get anything back to you. And we appreciate you being a part of the Confer group and supporting our efforts here. So everybody have a great day, and thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, everyone. Look forward to meeting you sometime soon.
Bye.
Bye, folks.